Hey, welcome back to Tuesday Live with myself, Melissa O'Brien, and my co-host, Lily Ma. Hello, Lily. How are you?
I am doing awesome, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here. I've got my coffee.
Good.
Right.
I've
Well,
got
it's
my
not actually a
tea as
coffee.
well. Oh,
Actually, it's not a
cheers.
coffee. I changed it up. It's a green tea latte, so it's not a coffee.
Oh, wow. Very healthy. It's only 10 a.m. sure in Canada, whereas it's 3 o'clock here in
Yes.
Ireland. So
Yes.
I have my tea though. So cheers.
Yes. Cheers, Melissa.
So anyway, today we're going to speak a little bit more about responding versus reacting. If you've been following me on my YouTube page, you will know that on my Mindful Monday, I did some speaking about it, and I also did a short blog post. So if you have not seen it in my description, I actually dropped a blog post link for you to go there also and to read more on it. But it's such a wide topic that I thought it would be amazing again to speak about it with Lily and to get her ideas on it also. So we'll get straight into it, I suppose. What are the differences, first of all? Well, responding is when we're in our best place, we're feeling good, we're looking after ourselves, even down to our health, we're sleeping enough. So obviously we won't feel as stressed. And when we react, we're tending not to be looking so great after ourselves. Maybe we're lacking sleep, or we haven't been really looking after our diet. And also, we might be feeling a little bit mindless instead of mindful. And maybe a situation or a person could say something, or something could happen, and we react instead of responding. In my Mindful Monday video, I spoke about maybe somebody cutting you off in traffic, but this could also go down to even in your family life, you know, how you're responding with your partner, your children. And as a mother myself, I know that when the kids were a lot younger, I had to be more mindful. And that's where the mindfulness really came in for me, because there were nights when I didn't sleep very much, and there was mornings I woke up and, you know, you just feel like putting your head back in the pillow and avoiding the world, but that can't be done. And it's the same if you have to go to work. I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of people out there who have to go to work with children. And I had to really become more aware of what I was eating, how I was feeling, and how, more importantly, I was responding to the people around me. And so today we're just talking a little bit more about this, and I don't know if there's anybody watching, but if there is, you can drop a comment if you have any questions. So Lily, what about you? Do you feel this is an important topic also for you, I'm sure, with your coaching? This is something you have to be more aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's extremely important. And I think that's where the mindfulness practice comes in. Part of the process, you know, you and I could talk about mindfulness all day long if we wanted to. It's really holding judgment, coming from a place of like observing something. And I think that's very, very important for responding well. You all like you are from like a bird's eye happening versus reacting. I think we're going to go a little bit deeper into it as well. For me, it's always important for me to reserve my judgment and like just, of course, I can't say that I'm not judgmental at all. The thing that we can also talk about is like what's is good. And we all have to act from a place of moral judgment. You have to make the judgment whether or not what you're doing is right or wrong. But if we use it in a place to condemn others, then judgment is not good. So I think that's where reacting comes from, is that condemn others where we didn't get sleep, of a certain lifestyle that we don't really understand with, and then we just react. We're like, how could this person do this? I'll give you an example. Judgmental, when I come across people who don't lead by example. if there's someone who's out there who's putting out, certain content of information and they're not living that lifestyle and I know about it, or like people that you give advice to others, but yet you don't actually follow it yourself. Like I am so judged by people like that. Instant reaction to them is not to take their advice. Period. They have, it's not like their advice is bad. I just have something against people who don't lead by example. So that's when I become the most judgmental. So that's something that I'm working on for myself, because I need to respond in a way. It's like, you know what? Their advice is good. It's just they're not living up to it. And it could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're working on it. They're trying. People, we're all human beings. We're not perfect. So maybe that's the reason. So that's one part of reacting that I'm really working on right now, like really hard. So that's me.
Yeah, I think it's a broad topic, and that's why I said we'd speak about it a little bit more. Like what I was saying in my Mindful Monday, even coming up to the holidays, a lot of people are very stressed, because sometimes we have to entertain people around that time of the year that we wouldn't normally hang around with, and they could be family members very close to us. And we kind of feel like we're in the situation where we have to sit across the table. And this is meant to be the day of relaxation and peace. And, it's difficult for people, not to judge or to react in situations like that. And this is where we can just kind of think about it, and become aware of how we're even feeling right now if we are thinking, we'll say, that far ahead. And this is something I've come up against a lot, through life, with friends or with family. They're excited about the holidays, but there's always maybe somebody they're not so excited to be sitting with at the table, or maybe they just don't have things in common, and people become stressed by things like that. And if you just, I think it's very important to become aware that no matter what somebody is saying to you, to be able to stand back a little bit and not take it so personal, and to just basically, stand in your own ground, and look after your own responses. I think this is so important, because even sometimes we can be in a situation outside of the holidays, or could be in the workplace, maybe a colleague says something, or a boss. And like I said earlier, if we're not looking after ourselves, or if we're not being mindful, that sometimes people say things and do things, because they're going through something themselves. Maybe the colleague is under pressure and they're just not handling it very well, and they're pushing that on us. And I think it's fair to say that if we're not practicing, or if we're not actually aware that people can do these things, and that really it has nothing to do with us. It could be just that moment that there's really no need to react, that we can just respond and say, I hear you, and, maybe find a solution. And sometimes that can be hard too, because maybe the other person is, in this emotion, because it all starts with emotion as well. And either the emotion is frustration or defense mode. Usually when we react, we're in defense mode, So it's very important, to be able to have good energetic boundaries, I think, to be able to realize when somebody is coming at you, that sometimes it's not really about you. It's about themselves, maybe the pressure they're under, and maybe not to take it so personally. But at the same time, I'm not saying that it's correct or that you have to put up with it, but to be able to just hold your own awareness, and, not to do something that you'll regret later, because that's usually what happens. When we react, we end up regretting it later, also. What do you think, Lily?
Oh, so true. I'll give you an example about something like this. So I recently met someone new, someone I'm going to possibly be working with, and I've never met her before in my life. And we had a Skype interview together, and she was not that friendly, like not that friendly at all. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. So instead of actually reacting, I just asked her. I say, hey, you know, what's going on? Like, are you having a bad day? And then she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm having a bad day. It's like really hot in this room and I'm just sweating and I can't focus right now and I'm just so tired. And then as soon as I had that conversation with her, I noticed that her entire persona kind of opened up and she became way more open with me and she became very friendly right after that. So because I was not in the same room as her, because we were having a Skype interview, there was no way of me knowing the temperature of the room. So in my head, I'm like, why is she so unfriendly? I don't understand. I'm trying so hard to, you know, make this work and she's being very unfriendly. And it just came down to the fact that it was really hot in the room. So I think, you know, our intuition, we have to trust our intuition too, is understanding when there is something wrong. Like if someone is not, and that goes like that situation I gave you is someone I've never met before in my life. So I don't know if this is, sometimes this is how people are. Like they are not friendly, right? They're not, you know, outgoing, and doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just not super outgoing. Or sometimes they're having a bad day. And if you feel it, like if you sense it, just ask the question in a nice way, obviously. Like I didn't say, hey, are you having a bad day? What's wrong with you? Right? I didn't say that. It's like, hey, are you having a bad day? You know, what's going on? And then chances are there could be something else, or maybe they could just say, no, I'm not having a bad day. This is who I am. Okay, that's fine. We could talk about that too. So it's always good to kind of follow your intuition and come from a place of care and empathy and see if they need help. Because a lot of the times it's actually misunderstanding. A lot of the times.
That's just it. Like, you know, it's all about, obviously, when we don't know people, or even if we do know people, you know, it's all about communication also. Clear communication, you know. And everybody has their own way. You know, some people are more talkative than others as well, you know. So definitely, it goes to that too. But I suppose the only point of power really is to just to be aware of ourselves, you know. And like you said, it's very important that we give people the benefit of the doubt, of course, especially if we don't know somebody or if we see somebody acting out of character. I think this is the normal kind of reaction we would have anyway, response, should I say. We would kind of give somebody the benefit of the doubt. There's something going on in their life, or maybe they haven't slept very well, or they might be very busy. But what I really want to get across is for people themselves to become more aware of how you're responding to life, you know, because, you know, this affects people on different levels also. It could be something simple as stress, you know, becoming stressed a lot. And there's so much of that out there, you know, people who are suffering with anxiety and stress for different reasons. You know, there could be somebody ill in the family. You know, they may not have work at the moment and they're worried about how to pay their bills, you know. So, you know, the thing is, it's a very delicate topic also in that sense that it can go anywhere. It's so broad, you know, and really, even if we are in situations where it's out of our control, like if there's somebody ill in the family, that is completely out of your control. And reacting, you know, out of pain or hurt, you know, being upset all the time is not going to help the situation. It's not helping you to be there for that person. And I think it's so beneficial to practice becoming more aware of how you are responding to life, whether it's that with the people around you or just with yourself, you know, the self-care, that level of self-care. If you're not feeling at your best, to try and replay the day before, or we'll say if it's in the evening you're not feeling your best, reflect on the day you've had. You know, it's so important. And then maybe if it's the way that we didn't eat properly or we didn't get enough sleep, then those are simple things. We can easily respond to that, you know. It's all about just trying to figure out what's going to suit us. You know, maybe it's a heavy workload, or maybe we're busy with our kids, you know. So it really is very broad, you know, and it's all about really self-care, I think, and being mindful and becoming more aware of our own thoughts. And like I gave the example of people who are in their car, you know, and maybe they're late for work. We say there's a traffic jam. And instead of responding, maybe by making the call calmly and saying, I'm caught in traffic, I'm very sorry for causing this inconvenience, the person becomes frustrated, you know, and it all starts with his thought, you know, and that's the moment where we try and catch ourselves and we ask ourselves the question, you know, what do I feel right now? Okay, I'm feeling stressed, I'm late for work. How am I going to respond? You know, and just taking that moment. You're stuck in traffic anyway, you're not moving. So you may as well just take a breath or ring your boss, we'll say, for example. But what happens a lot of the time is people, they get very stressed and they become reactive, you know, and then the mental chatter can go off in the mind, you know, all the negative chatter of all they're in the future of what will happen, what will be said. And so they're not being proactive, you know, they're not focused on the actual solution. They're more focused on, we'll say, the negative outcome of this situation that was completely beyond their control, you know. So I think it's so important that we become more aware and learn how to start in the small things. You know, I'm not saying that everybody has to go around all day being aware, how, what am I saying? Because if we were doing that, we couldn't live, you know, but just starting with the small things. And then with the bigger things, you know, like when we get something that's more stressful or a larger conflict, maybe we're in a situation where we have a disagreement with somebody. When we practice, like when we're in traffic, or if somebody cuts us off in traffic, instead of going on about it for 20 minutes in our mind, if we start to find the solution, what can I do right now? You know, what is this benefiting me right now? You know, this reaction, how can I respond? By taking a breath, and like I said earlier, ringing fast, and you know, just those little things, you know. And then for the larger things, like I say, you will be much more able to respond better, you know, if somebody gets ill in the family, we'll say, you know. And it's a great thing to practice. I think it's so worthwhile, because for me personally, I found that this was something I really needed to learn, you know. Just on the smaller levels, to start on small levels and then to broaden it, you know. Then when something went wrong, if you say I get a call and there's somebody ill, or if my kids, you know, are having tantrums, you know, it's so important to be able to stand back and take a breath and say, okay, this is their moment, this is normal, every child is going through it. And even if they're throwing things or, you know, you have to realize that it's all an emotion they're feeling at that moment, and it's frustration, you know. So it's good to be able to just stand back and respond, you know, whatever it is that you need to do in that situation. For anybody out there, if it's a child, obviously you're going to try and distract them, play with them for a little while, or give them a drink or whatever, and hopefully they don't throw the drink at you, which has happened to me many times. But you know, it's really so valuable. That's what I'm saying, in every area, whether it's work or in traffic or even with your own kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's going to be obviously huge situations in our lives, and I'm sure there's people out there that maybe will watch this later or watching this now, and they may think to themselves of a situation where they have reacted. And I think it's only fair and human to admit we've all done it, you know, whether we were younger or older, you know what I mean. We've all had a moment in life where we regretted something. We reacted instead of responding. We get caught in the heat of the moment, you know. It could be an argument, it could be anything. But I just want to put that out there too, that, you know, if there's anybody out there that's thinking, oh, I do this or I do that, you're human, and this is all about just becoming aware. You know, that's what mindfulness is, and this topic I just felt was so important, you know, so very important.
It is very important, and the reason for that is probably a lot of relationships fail because there's too much reaction going on and not enough responding. Too many people have lost their jobs because they're reacting. They're too stressed out. I used to work in the corporate world. There were certain personality types that just couldn't handle the situation that we were in. And that's why I think it's important to spend some time in talking about how to respond better and not just react to the situation. Even in my marriage, I'm married, I run a business. Right before our call started, I told Melissa that my day started at 8 a.m. So I've been here since 8 a.m. and it's not going to end till 10:30 p.m. So we're talking, I don't even know how many hours that is, like 14 and a half hours. We're talking without any breaks. And Melissa, the first thing she asked me, she's like, are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do? I was like, well, don't worry. I got lots of healthy food around me. I'm going to be just fine. But being present too, I think that's very important. Right now I'm with Melissa and I'm very present. I'm present with this interview. I'm present with the audience that is tuning in. I'm not concerned about the 101 things that I need to do later on. So that's first thing. And with my husband, we're busy people. He has a startup, I have a startup, and we're also making our relationship as healthy as possible. And one of the things that I do with him is sometimes when I'm on the phone, because I'm replying to emails, I do a lot of late night emails. Like, I can't even tell, I'm not exactly proud of them. Like, I will respond to emails at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't really sleep much. So he would come up to me, say, I want to talk to you, or he's talking to me about something, right? And I will just take a moment. I look at him. I was like, honey, what you're telling me right now is very important. Let me just finish up this email. Takes 2 seconds, and then you will have my full attention. I'm not going to focus on this at all. And he's like, okay, sure. So he'll wait 2 seconds after I'm done. I was like, okay, so what were you saying? And then he has my full attention. Because I think that happens a lot in relationships, and you're probably in parenting too. I'm not a parent myself, but I'm assuming it does happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You have someone talking to you and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah. And then that person feels terrible. So then they start reacting. They think that you don't care about them. And then you get upset. You're reacting because you're like, well, can't you see I'm busy? Obviously, I don't have time. But it always comes down to the same thing, Melissa, is having a conversation with someone, having an honest conversation. And it doesn't have to be like this big 2-hour, like pouring out your heart conversation. It's something like what I did. Honey, what you said was really important. Can you just wait a couple of seconds? I'll finish this up and I'll come talk to you.
Absolutely. Clear communication, listening, good listening skills and clear communication can go a long way. I definitely think that also. And we have some comments there, Lily. Can you see them?
I do see them. Actually, positive. Oh, we got Soulful Queen. Hello, Soulful Queen. Soul Food, not Soulful. Soul Food Queen. We have positive vibes. We have Your Smart Supporter. And we also have Clifford Starks. Yay! He's always there.
Hi, Clifford. Hello, positive vibes. Hello, Soul Queen.
Nice.
Oh, they're so good. You're so supportive. Thanks so much for dropping in. Does anybody have any questions?
I actually have a comment. Melissa, I think you'll be a really good person to actually answer this. So Positive Vibes made a comment. He said, sometimes people stress out about any and everything, but when you tell them to meditate, they look at you like you're crazy. Vibe killers. What do you say about that?
Positive vibes. Listen, boy, I've been there, done that. Do you know what? Everybody has their own time, and meditation is amazing. And I know that you love to meditate, and many people watching here have tried meditation and they love it. And then there's many people who just find it very difficult. So it really depends on the person whether they're ready or not. And the reality is that. You seem like a very conscious person, positive vibes, but the reality is many people, as you say, they're very stressed out. And when a person is in the state of stress, it's very difficult for them to see in that moment clearly, or to even become aware of how they're feeling, because they're so caught up in the emotion, And if a person is not looking after themselves, like we spoke about earlier, I suppose if it was a friend of mine and I knew that they were stressed all the time, I would probably sit with them when a time was good for them, and I'd ask them about their day, and I'd ask them about the past week. And if there was a continuous cycle of something that was going on in their lives, we'll say maybe they don't like their job, or maybe they're not eating properly, because all these things play a big role. It's all down to self-care also. And or there could be something else. Maybe there's somebody ill in the family, like we said. You see, sometimes we don't realize some people's levels of stress can be higher than others. Not everybody's built the same. And what triggers one person might not trigger another person. And when you tell somebody like that, they kind of look at you because they're so unaware, because they've been in this stress for so long. And even if they were to sit down and to start meditating, I'm sure that it would actually be very difficult for them. And that's the truth about it. Because I remember when I first started meditating, I wasn't aware I was going to be meditating. It was through yoga, like I spoke about before. But I was exhausted from the workout, so I just fell into meditation. But at that point in my life, going back into 2008, I think it was, or late 2007, I was working a lot of overtime. I was stressed out, and I remember I'd lost my mother the previous year, and I'd moved to a new city, so everything was up in the air for me. And if somebody had said to me, Melissa, you're going to feel so much more relaxed if you just meditate, I think I probably would have looked at them too, to be honest. And that's why I'm answering like this, because I'm coming from a space where I know what stress is like. And I know what it's like to be overwhelmed and to be in a cycle of it. And I remember that time I got sick, and that was the only reason I took time off work, because I was working a lot of overtime. And I had my daughter and my husband. I was looking after the house, cooking and cleaning and doing all the things that we all have to do. But I never took time for myself. I wasn't really taking time out to really take care of myself. I was eating well, fair enough, but I wasn't slowing down in the right way, really relaxing, not allowing myself, on the weekends to just relax. And that's what it took. It took me to get sick, that time I think it was a lung infection or something like that I'd caught, and I had to take a week and a half off work. And I was just sitting on the couch, and the yoga came on, and then the meditation came on afterwards. And I remember saying, I'll try the yoga after about 2 days. And that was the only reason I found meditation, was through that. And as I say, it was at the end of the yoga. So I think the best way around this, to get back to what you were saying, is to really speak to the person, find out what their lifestyle is like. It's so important, and what their stress levels are and what is causing the stress. And sometimes they may not know themselves. They may not know they're overworking themselves. They may not realize they're not taking good care of themselves, and then you can start to remind them, okay, maybe you need to take care of yourself. Because I think if we take a gentle approach, people are much more willing to listen, and then, when they get to a level where they, maybe it's their work and they realize, I need to slow down a bit, or maybe they need to exercise to take away the stress. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes people like to work out to reduce stress. So by offering, different ideas, and see how they get on with that. And then if the more open they become to you, you can also suggest meditation, and maybe they'll be very open to it. But like what you were saying, that this person, didn't seem open to it. And I think this may be one of the reasons, but there are many other ways people can relax, and even Lily has said that before, like for her, dancing is a form of meditation. So maybe that person might like dancing, so meditation can be in many forms, I think, it's just not everybody is willing, to sit on a pillow. And I don't think it suits everybody either, and if the people it does suit, it's amazing. So we all, find our ways. What do you think, Lily?
I think so too. It's again, it's like the theme of the day is having a conversation with that person and really trying to figure out what it is that is bothering them. Because meditation is a solution. Same as we could provide all sorts of solutions to help with someone's stress. Like, why don't you drink some green tea? Why don't you have some ginger? Whatever it is, these are all solutions, and they all work. It's very true. Meditation, no doubt, works for people. But if you don't get their buy-in, and you don't really get them to understand why it's actually important and how it's going to help them, they're just not going to do it. It's just another solution. And finding out what it is that they need, why they're stressed out. It could be something, like you said, something as simple as just not eating well. And then, okay, if you're not eating well, why don't we try to see if there's something we can do about your diet, and or if it's something else, maybe, you know, they like people have like told me something as silly as that I drank too much coffee, like there's too much caffeine. I've had too much caffeine today and I feel really jittery and stressed out. So really understanding what the problem is, and then offering the solution after the fact, because solutions are not going to work unless they buy into the idea of it. And it sounds like this person has not bought in yet.
Absolutely. And, you know, meditation is becoming more popular. That's the truth about it, because people are realizing that they have stress, and, you know, but it all depends on the person if they're ready. But it sounds like from what Positive Vibe was saying, this person was looking like you're crazy, you know, or in general when he says it to people, you know. And I have to be honest, you know, of course, when I started meditating first and practicing mindfulness, you know, people were kind of looking at me too, you know. But, you know, people do these things when they're ready. And sometimes it could take an illness, unfortunately, like what happened to me that time. I had no choice but to slow down. And it was a minor thing, thank God for me, you know. But sometimes, you know, people only realize it when something goes wrong in their lives or if they get ill. And that's what we don't want. That's why we're here today. That's why I have this channel. This is why Lily is here. We're speaking about all these different topics. It's because we want to help people and, you know, help people to realize that just by becoming more aware and, you know, understanding yourself more. And it's self-care also, like what Lily said, your diet, all these things play a huge part into it. And even before we came on here, myself and Lily, we were speaking about food, and, you know, and this is even something I have to look into more for myself. I usually would be great, you know, looking after my diet, but these few weeks, I have to be honest, you know, life has been a little bit more busier, you know, and especially coming up to the holidays as well. People will feel that. So we all need to take extra care of ourselves. And also what Lily was saying about coffee or caffeine in general. For me personally, I could have maybe one coffee. But if I go over that, I am the type of person I get jittery, like what Lily was saying. You know, so that was something I quit a long time ago. And even with fizzy drinks, you know, all these kind of things, they're just something I'm not, I don't really use anymore because they don't agree with me. And I think if you are stressed, you know, we do tend to go for the quicker foods and the more comforting foods. You know, that's the norm, I think. So again, it's just becoming more aware and, you know, seeing where the person is coming from, for sure. I'm just having a look here, see if there's anything else. Thanks, Clifford. It's a great answer. And so we're up to the half an hour, Lily.
Yes.
Is there anything you'd like to say to everybody before we sign off?
Since we're talking about reacting and responding, I think today, for all of the people watching, just take a moment to try to understand. Come from a place of understanding, whether if it's with yourself or with other people. It has to start with yourself first. If you're feeling a certain way, try to understand yourself, be compassionate towards yourself, and try to understand why it is that you're feeling that way. And then that will carry it out to other people around you.
Absolutely, I totally agree. It all starts with a thought, you know, and sometimes that thought, we have to start with ourselves. You know, what can I do? How can I become more aware? And as I say as well, starting small. I think starting small is the way to go. Maybe just notice if you're driving, the next time you're in traffic, that's when you can practice. Or maybe if you've got children, you know, and you haven't had very much sleep, you know, how are you waking up the next morning? You know what I mean? You could ask your questions there as well. What am I feeding myself? And I know Clifford, he speaks a lot about health and, you know, working out, and he also has a young child, so he understands all of these things, and he speaks about not getting a lot of sleep. But so these are all very real things, you know, and people all go through it. So we're all human, and the only thing is that if we become more aware and less reacting and more responding. So I think we'll close it up with that. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And you, Lily, thank you again.
Thank you.
You're amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I'll see you guys next week.
Okay, guys, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.